Sally, since last week's interview, Secretary Ryan Stewart held a virtual press conference where he discussed athletics and activities and talked about if schools can work out in 4-to-1 pods or if they would have to stop workouts. Can you clarify what the ruling is for athletic programs?
Yeah, the ruling is from the governor's conference and then from Ryan Stewart's conference. The ruling is that schools remain the same as they were prior to last week. So yes, we can still work out in our 4-to-1 pods. Now, what does that mean? You know, right now, as you see the numbers skyrocketing, it means that we need to make sure that we follow our guidelines and we're safe. And this is an administrative decision. So the administrators at the school will determine whether they want to continue the workouts in the 4-to-1 pods or not.
You had said during last week's interview that athletes could not work out in those 4-to-1 pods during the holiday break. Does that include powerlifting?
Now, powerlifting is in season. And so our out-of-season guidelines say that when school is not in session, we cannot work out. However, powerlifting is in session. Now, what does that mean? Those athletes that are competing in virtual powerlifting can work out over the break. However, that does not mean your whole football team. If they are not going to compete in powerlifting, then they are out of season and they are not able to work out. The only ones that are able to work out over the Thanksgiving break and the winter break are the powerlifters.
You've been working on sliding some start dates around on the calendar. Why are they being changed, and what will the new schedule for athletics look like?
You know, we learned a lot with fall sports. You know, fall sports started, and it wasn't until they were in a week into their fall sport practice that all of a sudden that we were not able to compete. And so in learning that, we want to make sure we're proactive this time around. And January 4th is a start date for basketball, swimming, and diving. Now, is it realistic that we're going to start on January 4th? With our cases rising and school districts are now voting to not get back into hybrid until mid-January, it's probably a situation where January 4th is going to be a stretch. So we are looking at the calendar to see, can we shift it to make sure that this is our last shift and that we will be able to start and our cases will go down. And so maybe it will be a February 1st start date. But once again, we are still looking to play every single sport in the 2021 school year.
Esports, an activity that students have been competing in this year, is adding a couple games. What games are being added and what sort of feedback have you been getting regarding esports?
You know, it's exciting. We have been asking nationwide, you know, all the state associations, can we add some sports games? So FIFA 21 and Madden 21 are going to be added for the spring competition. And then that's along with what we've already had, League of Legends, Rocket League, and Smite. So we are excited to add these games. And we had a fall season, and we're going to rev it back up beginning of February for a spring season. And now we're going to have a championship with 5 quality games.
The holidays are here. If a person goes out of state for the holiday, the public health order says there's a 14-day quarantine. Can student athletes and coaches still attend practice in those 4-to-1 pods immediately when they return?
It's 14-day quarantine means no. You know, and we have talked about these kids to be honest as to what's going on in their household. You know, if they're traveling for Thanksgiving break, or if anybody's coming from out of state into their household, there needs to be a 14-day quarantine. And so be honest, athletes. You know, when this comes after Thanksgiving break, when practices resume again, make sure that you know that if you have been out of state or if somebody has come into your household from out of state, then you need to quarantine for 14 days and not come to practice.
What kind of concern do you have for the accuracy of those pre-workout COVID questions that students are being asked about being sick or exposed?
You know, like I just said in the last question, is we need our athletes to be honest. That is where we are getting a lot of the COVID-19 into the schools, is when it's coming from the outside. And so that includes athletics in our 4-to-1 pods. So when the athletes come to work out and they're asked those questions, they need to be honest. And if they do have any symptom, I mean, that's even a sore throat, then don't come to practice. Or if they've been exposed, make sure you let your coach know. We have been really working with our coaches over and over to make sure they let their athletes know that it's best to be honest than to come to practice. Because all you are doing when you come to practice in those situations is you're exposing your teammates. And then the whole team is going to have to shut down. So once again, student athletes, make sure you answer those questions honestly in order to protect everybody around you.
Lastly, what we've been hearing from a lot of coaches and athletic directors is the toughest thing for kids over the past couple months is they feel like the rug is being pulled out from underneath them with expectations of a season followed by a delay. What can you say to them to keep them positive and hopeful?
Yeah, it is tough. But in athletics, what we need to think about is we have short-term goals, and those are daily goals or weekly goals to make sure we get our long-term goal. And a lot of times in sports, that is the state championship. So what do we do daily and weekly to get to that state championship? It's the same concept. Our goal, our long-term goal, is to make sure that everybody plays sports and the sports that they love in the 2021 school year. That has not changed. I have been saying that since April, May, June, all the way through. I have been saying that's the goal. And so now we need to work daily and weekly to make sure that we attain that goal. Right now, cases are rising. And so is the start date of January 4th realistically? Probably not, the way that we are going with the cases. We need to bring those cases down, and then we can play in New Mexico. So right now, is the rug being pulled out from under them? No, we are just shifting our short-term goals to make sure that we have the long-term goal. And as January 4th is not a start date and we start in February, we are still going to play. And so to those student athletes and coaches, remain positive because the long-term goal is there to play sports in New Mexico, and we will continue to work every single day, every single week to make sure that we play again in New Mexico.